Hi, everyone. Welcome to StoryLearn. I'm Glinda, and I'm very happy to see you again. Today, we're going to talk about Adolf Hitler. It's a serious story, but it's a great way to learn new English words and phrases. If the video goes too fast, don't worry. You can slow it down. This way, you can understand everything better. Are you ready to begin? We're going to learn English together, and it will be exciting and full of great stories. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Who was Adolf Hitler? Adolf Hitler was a leader in Germany from 1933 to 1945. He was in charge of the country and the Nazi Party. The Nazi Party was also called the National Socialist German Workers' Party. Hitler was a dictator for most of the time he was in power. Hitler made very bad choices that started World War II. He also started the Holocaust, where 6 million Jewish people and 5 million other people who were not fighting were killed. Chapter 2. Family. Adolf Hitler was one of 6 kids. His parents were Alois Hitler and Clara Polzel. When Hitler was young, he often argued with his father. His father was very strict and did not like that Hitler wanted to be an artist. After his younger brother Edmund died in 1900, Hitler became very quiet and kept to himself. Chapter 3. Young Hitler. Hitler liked the idea of Germany nationalism and rejecting the rules of Austria-Hungary. This nationalism would become the motivating force of Hitler's life. In 1903, Hitler's father passed away suddenly. 2 years later, Hitler stopped going to school. After his mother died in December 1907, he moved to Vienna, where he did small jobs and painted pictures with watercolors. He tried to join the Academy of Fine Arts 2 times but didn't get in. With little money from an orphan's pension and selling postcards, he lived in places for people without homes. Hitler said this time in his life is when he started not liking Jewish people, but some people aren't sure if that's exactly true. In 1913, Hitler went to Munich. When World War I started, he joined the German army, even though he was still from Austria. Hitler wasn't often in the hardest fighting parts of the war. Some stories about his time in the war are thought to be made bigger than they were. He did fight in big battles, got hurt at one called the Battle of the Somme, and got medals for being brave. When the war didn't go well, Hitler was very upset. He loved Germany a lot and couldn't believe it when Germany gave up in 1918. He thought Germany's leaders and some other groups didn't support the army enough. He was also very unhappy with the Treaty of Versailles because it said Germany had to say they started the war, and it made Germany's military smaller, especially in a place called the Rhineland. Chapter 4. Nazi Germany and Speeches. After World War I, Hitler went back to Munich and kept working for the German military. He watched a group called the German Workers' Party, DAP, and liked a lot of what they thought, especially their dislike for Jewish people and their love for Germany. In September 1919, Hitler joined this group, which soon changed its name to the Nazi Party. Hitler made a flag for the Nazi Party with a symbol called the swastika on it. He started to get known for his strong speeches against the Treaty of Versailles, people he didn't agree with, Marxists and Jews. In 1921, he became the leader of the Nazi Party. Hitler's speeches at beer halls got a lot of people to listen. One of his early supporters was Ernst Röhm, who led a group that helped keep their meetings safe and fought against those who didn't agree with them. Chapter 5. Mein Kampf. On November 8, 1923, Hitler and his group tried to take over a government meeting in Munich at a big beer hall. He said it was the start of a change in the government. This attempt didn't work, led to some people dying, and Hitler got caught and sent to prison for a short time. While in prison in 1924, Hitler told his friend, Rudolf Hess, about his life and ideas, which became a book called Mein Kampf, or My Struggle. The first part of the book came out in 1925, and more came out in 1927. This book, which said a lot of untrue and harmful things, sold over 5 million copies before 1939. It talked about Hitler's dislike for Jewish people and his ideas for transforming German society into one based on race. In the first part, Hitler talked about his anger over how World War I ended, wanting revenge, and wanting to expand Germany. The second part was about how he planned to get and keep power. The book had mistakes and strange ideas, but it was interesting to many Germans who were unhappy after World War I. Chapter 6: Rise to Power. During a time when many people in Germany did not have jobs because of the Great Depression, Hitler saw a chance to gain more power. Many Germans were unhappy with their government and were looking for new leaders, even if their ideas were extreme. In 1932, Hitler ran for president against Paul von Hindenburg, who was very old. Hitler didn't win, but he got a lot of votes, showing he was a major player in German politics. Hindenburg, not really wanting to, made Hitler chancellor to try and keep peace in the government. Chapter 7: Hitler as Leader. As chancellor, Hitler quickly made himself the only ruler. After a fire at the Parliament building, he made a rule that took away many basic rights, like the right to a fair trial. He also got a law passed that let his group make all the decisions without asking anyone else for 4 years. This law also let them change the country's main laws. Calling himself Führer, or leader, Hitler now had complete control. He and his friends made sure no one else could challenge them. By the end of June, all other political groups had given up or were forced to stop. On July 14, 1933, only Hitler's Nazi Party was allowed. Later, in October, Hitler decided Germany would leave the League of Nations, an international group meant to keep peace. Chapter 8: Night of the Long Knives. Hitler did not tolerate opposition, even from within his own ranks. When the SA, a military group that helped him rise to power, wanted more influence, it led to a violent event called the Night of the Long Knives. From June 30 to July 2, 1934, Hitler ordered the killing of SA leaders, including Röhm, who he saw as a threat, and others who opposed him, across Germany. Right before President Hindenburg died in August 1934, the government decided to get rid of the president's job, combining it with the chancellor's. This made Hitler the top leader of Germany and the military. Chapter 9: Hitler's Unfair Rules Against Jews. From 1933 to the beginning of World War II, in 1939, Hitler made many rules that were unfair to Jewish people. These rules were meant to stop Jewish people from being a part of society. The Nazi government announced that they would treat Jews poorly, and they did this by making a lot of rules against them. On April 1, 1933, Hitler said people should not buy things from Jewish stores. Soon after, on April 7th, he made a rule that Jewish people could not work for the government. This rule was part of what they called the Aryan Paragraph, which meant Jewish people and those not considered Aryan could not have certain jobs, go to certain schools, or be part of many parts of daily life. More rules came that made it hard for Jewish kids to go to school or for Jewish people to be doctors or lawyers. Jewish tax advisors also lost their jobs. In 1934, there was a big event where students threw away over 25,000 books that the Nazis did not like, saying they were against German values. This was the beginning of them telling people what they could read or watch. Jewish actors could no longer act in movies or plays. On September 15, 1935, new rules called the Nuremberg Laws were made. These rules said that anyone with 3 or 4 Jewish grandparents was Jewish, no matter if they practiced the religion or not. These laws also stopped Jewish and non-Jewish Germans from getting married and made Jewish people not full citizens. In 1936, when Germany hosted the Olympic Games, Hitler did not talk badly about Jewish people or treat them badly in public. He did not want the world to see what was happening, and he did not want to lose money from tourists. But after the Olympics, things got worse again. Jewish businesses were taken away and given to non-Jewish people. Jewish people were not allowed to go to public places like schools, theaters, or sports events. They were even stopped from living in certain areas. Jewish doctors could not treat non-Jewish patients. Jewish people had to carry special ID cards, and later their passports were marked with a J to show they were Jewish. Chapter 10. Kristallnacht. On the nights of November 9th and 10th in 1938, there were big, violent attacks against Jewish people in Germany, Austria, and some places nearby. Nazis broke into and ruined many synagogues, Jewish places of worship, and damaged the homes, schools, and shops of Jewish people. Almost 100 Jewish people were killed during these attacks. This event is called Kristallnacht, which means Night of Crystal or Night of Broken Glass. This name comes from all the broken windows from the buildings that were attacked. This night showed that the Nazis were going to treat Jewish people even worse than before. Almost 30,000 Jewish men were taken and put into places called concentration camps, which was a sign of more bad things to happen. Chapter 11. Persecution of homosexuals and people with disabilities. Hitler didn't just target Jewish people. He also didn't like people who were born different, like those with disabilities. He even made a rule that allowed for adults with disabilities to be killed because he thought they weren't perfect. Homosexuals, or people who love others of the same gender, were also treated very badly. About 100,000 men were arrested between 1933 and 1945 for being gay. Some were put in prison, and others were sent to concentration camps. In these camps, they had to wear pink triangles, so everyone knew they were gay, which the Nazis said was both a crime and a sickness. Chapter 12. The Holocaust and Concentration Camps. From the beginning of World War II in 1939 to the end in 1945, the Nazis and their helpers caused the deaths of at least 11 million people who were not fighting in the war. This included about 6 million Jewish people, which was 2/3 of all the Jewish people in Europe. This terrible killing of so many people was part of what Hitler called the final solution. Later, people started calling it the Holocaust. Many of these sad events happened in places called concentration and extermination camps, like Auschwitz-Birkenau, Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, and Treblinka. These places were not just for Jewish people. Others who were hurt included Polish people, people who disagreed with the Nazis, gay people, Jehovah's Witnesses, and people in labor unions. People in these camps had to work very hard with little food, were treated very badly, and some were used in terrible experiments that hurt them a lot. It is believed that Hitler never went to these camps himself and did not talk about what was happening there. However, the German people who did these things kept records and even made films showing what they did. Chapter 13. World War II. In 1938, Hitler and some leaders from other countries made an agreement called the Munich Pact. This agreement gave parts of a place called Sudetenland to Germany. Because of this, Time magazine named Hitler the Man of the Year for 1938. This success made Hitler want more power. On September 1, 1939, Germany attacked Poland, and this started World War II. 2 days after that, Britain and France said they were at war with Germany. In 1940, Hitler's army went into many countries, including Norway, Denmark, France, Luxembourg, the Netherlands, and Belgium. He also started bombing the United Kingdom, hoping to invade it later. Germany, Japan, and Italy made an alliance called the Axis Powers. They hoped this would stop the United States from helping Britain. On June 22, 1941, Hitler broke a promise not to fight with the Soviet Union, Russia, and sent a lot of soldiers into the Soviet Union. They took over a big part of Russia, but then Hitler made them stop and go to 2 places called Leningrad and Kiev instead. This break gave the Soviet Union's army a chance to fight back, and by December 1941, Germany could not move any further into Russia. On December 7th, Japan attacked a place called Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. Because of their agreement with Japan, Germany was now fighting against the Allied powers. This group included Britain, led by Winston Churchill, the United States, led by Franklin D. Roosevelt, and the Soviet Union, with the biggest army, led by Stalin. Chapter 14. Losing the War. Hitler first thought he could make the Allies fight against each other, but his plans for war didn't work out. His choices got worse, and the Axis powers couldn't keep up with the war he wanted. By the end of 1942, his army couldn't take over the Suez Canal, which led to them losing control in North Africa. They also lost big battles in Stalingrad, 1942-43, and Kursk, 1943. These losses were very bad for Hitler's army. On June 6, 1944, a very important day known as D-Day happened. The Allies from the West landed in northern France. After these big losses, many of Hitler's own army leaders thought they would lose the war, and that Hitler staying in charge would only make things worse for Germany. Some people even tried to get rid of Hitler in 1944 with a plan in July, but they didn't succeed. Chapter 15. Hitler's Bunker. By early 1945, Hitler knew Germany was going to lose the war. The Soviet army had pushed his army back and surrounded Berlin, while the Allies were coming into Germany from the other side. On January 16, 1945, Hitler moved to an underground shelter called the Führer Bunker, close to the government buildings in Berlin. This shelter had about 30 rooms. It was big and had things like oil paintings, nice furniture, fresh water, pumps, and a generator. At midnight into April 29, 1945, Hitler married his girlfriend, Eva Braun, in a small wedding in his bunker. Around this time, he found out that Mussolini, the leader of Italy, had been killed. Hitler was worried he might end up the same way. Chapter 16. Death. On April 30, 1945, Hitler chose to end his own life because he was scared of being caught by the enemy soldiers. He used poison and then shot himself in the head. Eva Braun, who was very close to him, also took poison at about the same time. After they died, their bodies were taken outside and burned so that almost nothing was left. Hitler was 56 years old when he died. A few days later, on May 2, 1945, the city of Berlin was taken over by soldiers from the Soviet Union. Then, on May 7, 1945, Germany said it was defeated and stopped fighting in the war. In 2018, scientists looked at what was left of Hitler's teeth and skull, which had been kept secret for a long time. They found out that he indeed died from poison and a gunshot wound. Chapter 17. Legacy. Hitler's decisions led to a very big and terrible war that left many places in Eastern and Central Europe, including Germany, in ruins. His actions caused a lot of people to suffer and die. Millions of people, including about 20 million in the Soviet Union and 6 million Jewish people in Europe, lost their lives because of him. After Hitler was defeated, Germany's power in Europe ended, and the idea of fascism like his was beaten. But after World War II, a new kind of conflict called the Cold War started, with different countries and ideas fighting against each other in different ways. And our video is finished. I hope you found it helpful for your journey in learning English. If you enjoyed it and want to discover more, please hit the subscribe button below to support us. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye, and I look forward to seeing you in future videos.